Fox News alert on the president's plans for his cabinet and the Mueller investigation. Welcome back to America's Newsroom. I'm Julie Banderas in for Sandra Smith.
Nice to see you, Julie.
Good to see you.
I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning. President Trump telling Chris Wallace he's thinking about some changes in his cabinet. He'll also address the Russia matter, saying that he probably will not sit down for an interview with Bob Mueller's team, but will soon submit responses in writing to them.
The questions were asked and answered. It wasn't a big deal. You know, they make it like I had meetings for many, many hours. I got the questions. I responded. We wrote them out. I read them once. I read them a second time. We made some changes. That's it.
Chief White House correspondent John Roberts. A brand new week there. John, how you doing from the North Lawn? Good morning.
Good morning to you, Bill. It is a brand new week, a bit of a short one. The president heads off to Mar-a-Lago tomorrow, and a couple of people around here at the White House who normally don't take any time off are actually off for the week. So it's definitely Thanksgiving. The president talking about potential changes to his cabinet, giving a little bit more detail to our Chris Wallace in an interview on Friday that aired yesterday. One of the changes that is said to be being considered is switching out DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. The president saying that he's thinking about it, but also indicating he has not yet made a decision. Listen here.
I like her a lot. I respect her a lot. She's very smart. I want her to get much tougher, and we'll see what happens there. But I want to be extremely tough.
Kirstjen Nielsen is well liked around the White House as well. People lauding the work that she did to maintain election integrity in the face of a lot of cyber threats. Supporters of Nielsen say that she has been tough on border enforcement, doing everything she can within the boundaries of U.S. law. But the president not happy with the number of people who continue to be apprehended at the border. He believes not enough is being done to either keep people out or dissuade them from coming to the United States in the first place. The job of chief of staff also being talked about. In the summer, John Kelly, you'll remember, said the president asked him to stay on through 2020, and he may, but he also may not. Listen to the president here.
I wouldn't look. We get along well. There are certain things I love what he does, and there are certain things that I don't like that he does that aren't his strength. It's not that he doesn't do, he works so hard. He's doing an excellent job in many ways. There are a couple of things where it's just not his strength.
Not his fault. It's just not his strength. There is a group of people who are close to the president who have been trying to get rid of Kelly for months upon months now. But there's another group of people outside the White House, Bill, who fear what might happen if Kelly were to ever leave.
Well, it's interesting. What can we expect on these written answers? Or perhaps when should we expect that with the special counsel?
Well, I can tell you it's not going to be today. As to whether it would be tomorrow or even before Thanksgiving, not clear at this point. Again, a lot of people are gone from the White House, and the president himself is leaving. But there's a chance, while it won't be today, I'm told, that it could be before Thanksgiving. The president also suggesting that if the interim attorney general, Matt Whitaker, were to do something to rein in the Mueller investigation, that would be Whitaker's decision to do. Listen to what the president said.
Look, it's going to be up to him. I think he's very well aware politically. I think he's astute politically. He's a very smart person.
You won't overrule him if he decides to curtail.
I would not get involved. And all these people that say, I'm going to end the investigation, they've been saying that now for how long has this witch hunt gone on?
And while the president seemed to indicate in his interview there with Chris Wallace that he would not sit down for an interview, I'm told that the possibility of a follow-up interview in person is still out there, though highly unlikely at this point. Bill?
Thank you, John. John Roberts from the White House, back with you a bit later today. Thank you, Sarah. Julie.
It is official. Florida will have a new governor and a new senator come January after Democrat Andrew Gillum conceded to Republican Ron DeSantis over the weekend, and Senator Bill Nelson conceded to Rick Scott nearly 2 weeks after Election Day and a drawn-out recount. Senator-elect Scott already has his sights set on Capitol Hill.
It's going to be exciting to go to Washington. I'm a business guy. I'm going to bring a outsider perspective like I did to Tallahassee and do everything I can to make sure federal government starts working for you and me.
Peter Ducey joins us live in Tallahassee, Florida, with all the developments following the recount. Hey, Peter, what are you going to do now?
Well, Julie, now we're watching what's happening down in Broward County because the election supervisor, Brenda Snipes, who said that she was pleased with her office's machine recount, even though it didn't count since the results were submitted late, She just quit, and she wrote a letter to Governor Scott that says this in part: although I have enjoyed this work tremendously over these many election cycles, both large and small, I'm ready to pass the torch. Therefore, I request that you accept my letter of resignation effective January 4th, 2019. Brenda Snipes spent most of this weekend trying to explain what happened to more than 2,000 ballots that went missing, and she kept getting defensive, insisting that they were inside the building, misfiled somewhere. But for Senator-elect Scott, it was not the missing ballots that were alarming. He says it was the ones that nobody knew about until after Election Day.
It was very frustrating. When I announced we'd won that Tuesday night, we were up 57,000 votes, and they just kept finding ballots. And so that's why, I'm thankful for a lot of people that brought light to this to make sure we stop this. And we're got to do everything we can to make sure these elections are free and fair.
Around lunchtime yesterday, Scott got what he describes as a gracious concession call from Senator Bill Nelson. And shortly after, the three-term incumbent who has been laying low posted this.
Well, things worked out a little differently than Grace and I had hoped, but let me say I by no measure feel defeated. And that's because I've had the privilege of serving the people of Florida and our country for most of my life.
So tomorrow morning here at the state capitol in Tallahassee, the Secretary of State will finally certify the results of all the elections, which means that this campaign that lasted an extra 2 weeks will finally officially be over. Julie.
All right. Thank you very much, Peter Doocy.
For more on this, Mark Thiessen, now Fox News contributor, fellow American Enterprise Institute, also the Washington Post. Mark, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Bill.
Kellyanne Conway 2 hours ago talked about Bill Nelson's history in Florida the following way. Watch.
The last time Senator Nelson ran for Senate 6 years ago, he won by 1.1 million votes, a 1 million vote plus margin. This time he lost. The people of Florida clearly don't want him to be the senator. He's been unremarkable. He should be credited for his service. But in the last few years, he's been sort of unremarkable.
So Rick Scott gets the victory there at a time where the Hill has this headline: Dem gains put Sunbelt in play for 2020. So what is it Republican gains in Florida? Is it Republican losses in Arizona and Nevada? How do you size this up, Mark?
Well, I mean, the death of the Republican Party in the Sun Belt is slightly premature. I mean, the Republicans just won both the governorship and the Senate in Florida. They won the governorship in Georgia, despite losing Arizona Senate race in a very close race. Governor Ducey won overwhelmingly. So they won the Senate in Tennessee. They won the Senate in Texas. You can go on and on. So I think that the Republican Party is fine in the Sun Belt. What's happened in the election, however, that is changing and is sort of maybe fundamental, is that suburban districts that traditionally voted Republican and that voted for Mitt Romney by double digits in the 2012 election voted overwhelmingly Democrat this time around, while the Obama-Trump voters in the Midwest, working class voters, came out in droves for the Republicans this time around. So the Trump voters, they responded. They came out for when President Trump called them out. So what we're seeing is a shift in the electorate where the country club Republicans have started voting Democrat in the Trump era, and Obama voters in the Midwest, working class voters, have started voting Republican. The question is this a fundamental shift, or is this a Trump-driven phenomenon, and we just don't know the answer yet?
Okay, so you're talking about the Romney/McCain/Bush Republicans versus what's shaping up now, if you can still hear me, Mark.
Sure.
How then do you win?
Yes.
How do you win back those spots that are perceived to be weak now?
Well, that's the fundamental question does the Republican Party simply turn around and say, okay, we're losing these suburban districts. Are we going to spend a lot of time trying to win them back? Or do we try and consolidate our gains with the Republican Party, try to consolidate its gains with the working class Democrats? That has fundamental policy implications because these Obama, Trump Democrats, working class Democrats, they're not for entitlement reform. They're not for small government. They're not for free trade. So a lot of traditional Republican policy positions elections would go out the window if you did that. I think that we can, the Republican Party can walk and chew gum at the same time. Trump can consolidate these voters who have come into the Republican fold, but he can do a better job of winning back these suburban voters because, quite frankly, they should be voting Republican. President, we talked about this in the morning before Election Day. The economy is booming. Women's unemployment is the lowest it's been in 65 years, but yet suburban women have fled to the Democratic Party. There's no reason for that. Donald Trump, a president as successful as Donald Trump and the economy should not be hemorrhaging suburban women. He's got to do a better job of trying to bring those people back into the fold.
Interesting stuff. I just got a couple seconds here. What do you expect on the Mueller answers? What do you expect on cabinet changes? Care to go on the record with any predictions, Mark?
You know, I think there's a lot of hyperventilating about all the changes. It is absolutely normal for the president of the United States after an election to try and reshuffle his cabinet, move some people in, move some people out. There's no evidence whatsoever that he's going to interfere with the Mueller probe in any way, shape, or form. You know, if he did, there's a check on it. It's called impeachment. The Democrats now control the House. They can impeach him if he tries to interfere with the Mueller probe. And, you know, so I think everybody's getting a little bit worked up over nothing. The president is going to make some changes in his cabinet, and that's the same. You know, George W. Bush, after the midterm elections in 2006, replaced Rumsfeld with Bob Gates, and that was seen as normal. So I don't see why everybody's so worked up about some cabinet changes.
Good to get your analysis there.
Thank
you so much, Mark Thiessen. We'll talk real soon. Bye.
Fox News alert on the deadliest wildfire in California's history, and the president got a firsthand look at the devastation there on the ground. Not wet weather moving in. Yeah, that wet weather is actually moving in, bringing a whole new set of problems. We're going to be live with the story coming up.
Also in a moment, the U.S. plan for Syria and the fight against ISIS, why our troops are staying there for the long term. Retired General Jack Keane is here to weigh in on that, coming up next, live.
What we're looking for is the enduring defeat of ISIS will include all Iranian commanded forces departing from the entirety of Syria.
For the holidays, FAO Schwartz is making a comeback 3 years after closing its flagship store on Fifth Avenue. The iconic toy retailer opens a brand new 20,000 square foot store in Rockefeller Center. How about that?
I'm very excited about
I am told to tell you, Julie, that the giant dance floor piano has returned as well.
Oh, thank God.
Here we go.
Have you ever tapped on that thing before?
You know.
Maybe?
Maybe 'tis the season.
Yeah. It is very fun, even for adults. You should try it sometime.
Okay.
It's literally,
you
around
have
the
done
corner
it
now. I have.
I see.
I'll admit, as an adult, I did not do it. I did it with children, but what the heck? I'll take you. It's right around the corner.
I'll go with you.
All right. The U.S. preparing for a long-term stay in Syria after defeating ISIS, with a plan for the troops to remain there until the country is stabilized. Now, the U.S. is also requiring Iranian-commanded forces must leave Syria before its withdrawal.
You cannot have an enduring defeat of ISIS until you have fundamental change in the Syrian regime and fundamental change in Iran's role in Syria, which contributed greatly to the rise of ISIS in the first place in 2013, 2014.
Joining us now, retired four-star General Jack Keane, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War and Fox News senior strategic analyst. General, always great to see you. So the United States is laying some pretty strict groundwork to stay in Syria for the long term, including stabilization after defeating ISIS. The U.S. also says that Iranian commanded forces need to leave Syria before U.S. withdrawal. What do you make of the U.S. staying in Syria?
Yeah, well, we've clearly changed our strategic framework in Syria in terms of what our objectives are. Initially, we had a very fixed military objective, the defeat of ISIS. We've taken their caliphate or territory away from them, and now we're cleaning up the rest of it, the remnants of ISIS. And also, as you mentioned, stabilization. We're trying to ensure, by helping the people in the area, particularly the war-torn area of eastern Syria, to reconstruct, to build schools, to get electricity and water going again, that ISIS does not return. So that major objective is ongoing. But what is new is what you and Bill have mentioned, is that we have a new strategic objective, which is essentially to contain Iran and stay in the country and have geopolitical influence on the Assad regime, on Russia, and on the Iranians to eventually get a political settlement that involves Iran leaving the country forever. That is a new strategic goal that the United States has.
The U.S. State Department has has yet to spell out a clear policy. And the Pentagon doesn't seem to know if removing Iran and Iranian proxies was actually going to happen. What is the official stance on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because here's some of the issues. I've spoken to Ambassador Jeffries, by the way, who you had here, and he's President Trump's envoy to Syria, and he's very capable, preeminent Middle Eastern expert. And here's the challenge we have. We have a strategic geopolitical objective to contain Iran and force them to leave. We do not, and I say again, we do not have a military objective to fight Iranian proxies in Syria. That would require a legal authority that we do not have. We are operating in Syria based on 9/11 legal authority coming out of the horrific attack on the United States to be able to chase down radical Islamists. We don't have legal authority to conduct military operations against Iranians or Iranian proxies. So that is why we have a geopolitical objective, but not a military one. And that's also why the Pentagon, if somebody's poking at them and they're giving you an answer that may not have all the clarity that you're used to getting, that's the reason behind it.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. I want to move on to another topic in the interview between Chris Wallace and the president. Chris Wallace brought up the backlash that the president received on Veterans Day. The president said, looking back on Arlington Cemetery and that situation, that he should have just gone. I want to play that part of the interview.
Here's the question. You're back in Washington on Monday, Veterans Day. Why don't you go across the river to Arlington for that ceremony? Barack Obama went every year he was here in D.C.
I should have done that. I was extremely busy on calls for the country. We did a lot of calling, as you know.
But this is Veterans Day.
I probably, in retrospect, I should have. And I did last year, and I will virtually every year.
How do you think the military community took it by him not being there, given the president's explanation that he had been busy taking care of state matters?
I don't think the military or our vets are offended by the president not being there. And the reason is because he's clearly stands out as a president who is so supportive of the military. He's rebuilding the military, obviously, with 2 down payments in terms of budgets, and the support he has shown for the vets. We've never, ever had a president post-World War II has been as supportive to do things to help our veterans as this president has. So I think he's got a lot of money in the bank when it comes to something like this. And look, he made a mistake, and he admits it. He should have been there. That's the reality of it. I think he was influenced when he left Europe. The last thing he did in Europe, he was in the pouring rain making a speech at an American cemetery. And I think that probably influenced him to say, well, I probably don't have to go to Arlington. I'm not going to get there until the morning anyway, and I've got some other things I'm going to do. That was a mistake. He owns up to it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up as well, that he was paying tribute to all Americans lost fighting for our country as he did that on that rainy day in France. But thank you very much, General Jack Keane. Always great to see you.
Yeah, good talking to you, Julie.
Thank you, sir. A man who once pleaded for his family's return before he was charged with murdering them heads back to court today to face sentencing after a surprising guilty plea.
Plus this, thousands of migrants reach a U.S. border town as residents protest their arrival. We've got a live report for you. Young daughters will be sentenced today. 33-year-old Christopher Watts pleaded guilty after prosecutors agreed not to seek the death penalty. Back in August, his 34-year-old wife and 2 daughters were reported missing. The girls' bodies were eventually found in an oil tanker on land owned by the company Watts worked for. His wife Shannon's body was buried in a shallow grave nearby.
Tensions high along the border of the
Michael Waltz about what veterans bring to the table when it comes to policy.
Looking forward to talking to him. Also in a moment here, a grim task in California. Crews searching through charred wreckage for human remains. That state's deadliest wildfire continues. We'll get a live report from the ground coming up shortly here.
Fire grew so quickly in the brush that is around this area. It also grew into the trees. And when it goes into the trees, it creates a shower of embers as well.
Fox News alert on the deadliest wildfires in California history. At least 80 people have died, nearly 1,000 others still unaccounted for. Now rain that could help the firefighters could actually hamper search and rescue efforts. Over the weekend, President Trump toured the devastation firsthand.
ask before expected rains arrive over the next 24 to 36 hours, because obviously when everything has been burned down to just tiny particles of ash, that could all be washed away in those rains, and it might mean therefore that they never get to find the bodies of all of those who died. There was also a vigil near Paradise, California, the town that was pretty much wiped out by the Camp Fire last night. A lot of people showing up and sharing the stories of what they believe are the miracles that led them to safety. Listen here.
We were basically a moving bomb because we had a bunch of propane tanks in the back of our truck and in our trailer. Just to think we could have exploded. So many people could have died.
Getting out was absolute mayhem. It was like a war zone.
Here in Southern California, in Malibu, where we are now, a lot of residents are finally being allowed home. But this is the kind of thing, Julie, that a lot of them are coming back to when they get here. The realization, the stark realization that there is essentially nothing left to come home to, Julie. It is going to be a very, very tough Thanksgiving week for the victims of both the Camp Fire up north and the Woolsey fire down here in Southern California. Julie?
All right, Jonathan Hunt, thank you.
From the front lines of Capitol Hill now, this midterm saw a number of military veterans elected to Congress. The Hill reporting this, quote, 16 former service members, including 3 women, won their races and will serve their first term starting in January, the most new veterans since 2010. What an honor. Congressman-elect Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz, who won Ron DeSantis' Florida House seat, that's Congressional District 6 around Daytona Beach. Sir, congratulations and welcome back here to America's Newsroom.
I appreciate it.
How do you remark on the gains that these veterans are making out of Iraq and Afghanistan?
Well, you know, Bill, we're at a record low in terms of veterans in the House and in the Senate. We're at a record low in our nation's history, hovering around 17%. So I am thrilled to see more veterans running on both sides of the aisle. Why is that so important? Because veterans know how to get things done. From the earliest age, we put our life on the line for our country, and we are about mission, we're about country, we're about getting results. And I think you're going to see, you know, setting the specific policy issues aside, our ethos that we bring to office will change. You know, in the foxhole, on the ship, on the plane, nobody cares about race, religion, socioeconomic background. It's about accomplishing the mission for your country, and I think that's what you're going to see with more veterans
you wonder how
on the Hill going forward.
Washington can beat down good people, right? I mean, there's a long track record for that, right, Michael?
Well, I used to tell people out of the campaign trail all the time, the bar for a bad day for me is getting shot at or blown up. So look, I think what the other thing you're going to see with veterans is keeping things in perspective. You know, we resolve things in America through debate and through voting, not through hatred and not through violence. That's what all kinds of countries.
We understand what leadership is, which is taking care of your people. Above all else, it's taking care of your people. It's inspiring people to be better. And also, it's an understanding that when we work with our fellow veterans, we know that we both started off this career just trying to serve our country before we got into politics, and that's a way to bridge that gap between us.
It sounds very similar to what you're saying, Michael.
That's right. You know, Dan's fantastic. Congressman-elect Crenshaw, I should say. We've done a number of events together. And so not only are we bridging the political divide, we're bridging the Army-Navy divide, because I'm Army, he's Navy. But look, this is incredibly serious, and I think it is cause for optimism for our country going forward. We know how to get things done. We know how to move the ball. If you don't get results in business and in combat, bad things happen. And the more people with that perspective that we get on Capitol Hill, I think the better for America.
Well, great stuff. Thank you, Michael. Good luck to you, okay? We'll see what's possible.
All right. Thanks so much, Bill.
You got a lot there. Thank you, Michael Waltz, Congressman-elect out of Florida today in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Julie. Thanks.
Okay, well, what was supposed to be a celebration of lights turns terrifying. Why a hot air balloon exploded right after taking off. Wow.
Also, deadly wildfires in California now posing a new threat. Rain in the forecast could trigger mudslides and air quality reaching dangerous levels over the weekend. We'll take you back live to the fire lines coming up shortly.
was like, wow, at least from our house, we could only see one block. It was pretty, scary, really.
The deadliest and most destructive wildfires in state history, claiming the lives of at least 80 people with nearly 1,000 others still unaccounted for. And now the situation could get even worse, with rain expected that could trigger mudslides in Southern California. Mike Moeller is Deputy Director of Communications for CAL FIRE. Thank you very much for coming in and talking to us. First, I want to talk to you about the grim task of searching for survivors, because this expected rain coming in this week is actually posing a huge problem for search and rescue crews. How are you handling?
No, that's absolutely right, and thank you for having us. The weather that's expected is definitely going to impact operations. It's especially during the recovery. Working with the Sheriff's Department and first responders. Again, we have additional resources out there, really trying to work ahead of these storms prior to their arrival.
So the National Weather Service of Los Angeles tweeted this, and I want to read it to you. Recent burn areas are at risk for mud and debris flows when heavy rain occurs. There is a 20% chance of debris flows on Wednesday. In addition, rock mudslides are always a risk on canyon roads when it rains. Are there further evacuations that are going to be put into effect in order to prevent any of those who did not evacuate from evacuating?
Well, what we do as part of our response with CAL FIRE is, as soon as we get a large fire like this, we dispatch what we call a watershed emergency response team. And in anticipation of the weather, we create what we call inundation maps. We start to structure the hillsides so we do not get that runoff. But are evacuations possible? They could be, and that's coordination between CAL FIRE, the Sheriff's Department, and local law enforcement. Where these inundation maps might see debris flows, we will make sure the community is out of that way and safe. As
of Sunday night, I understand the blaze was about 2/3 contained, consuming some 150,000 acres. I want to talk about the air quality there. It's so dangerous, and California has never seen anything like it. The air quality map shows you that air quality is unhealthy in most of northern and central California. Are these livable areas for those people that are allowed to go back home? And when they do go back home, there's nothing there. So what happens to those that are displaced and those that are currently residing in California? Is it safe to even live there right now?
It is. In fact, the other day we actually had some of the worst air quality in the world. What we recommend, and we continue to tell the public, that if you are outdoors, limit your activity, have a mask, a particle mask with you at all times, and then sensitive populations, if you have asthma, the elderly, to stay indoors as much as you can. The smoke is going to be in the air for a while. The rain will help us with that. But again, if you're in any of that area, you need to stay out. It's not just the smoke from the actual brush that was burning, but you have to remember we had structures, vehicles, so very hazardous. And again, we ask the public to limit their exposure to outdoor as much as possible.
It's hard to really grasp the enormity of the devastation there. I mean, I personally haven't seen it, but we all have seen these aerial pictures on the ground where everything is just smoldered and destroyed and nothing is left. You know, you talk about all the unaccounted. Those are missing people for over a week now. What do you do? How do you look for them? How do you conduct searches in conditions like this?
It's very methodical. We do what's called a grid process. Again, the sheriff's office and the coroner, along with what we call our urban search and rescue teams through California Office of Emergency Services, are out there actually gridding the areas and moving through pretty much a sweep. They will not miss, in addition to the cadaver dogs that will grid all of those areas. But again, seeing the devastation and being up there, there is a lot of work to be done. It is apocalyptic. It is so large up there and so destructive. It's definitely going to take more time.
Okay, how long do you expect this to take, and how long do you expect air quality to resume to normal, and will California ever resume to normal?
I think, well, when we talk about fire conditions on one side, this is normal, unfortunately, due to the climate change. We still never recovered from the drought. So these large, devastating fires, unfortunately, have been common. But yes, the air quality will change. The rain will definitely help. But this is going to take several, if not over 10 years to recover from. You have to remember, once the fire's out, we are just entering into the recovery process with the community and actually debris removal and then the rebuilding stage. So we have a long road to go.
The good thing is the president says he will not be cutting off funding. That is a good thing. So you at least have the government's assistance and, of course, our thoughts and prayers as well. Thank you very much, Mike Mueller, for talking to us today.
Thank you so much.
Outnumbered comes up in a moment. A quick check of what's happening with Melissa and Harris and what's coming up there. Hey, ladies, happy Monday.
Well, happy Monday. Great to see you, Bill. Some Democrat senators are suing to block the president's appointment of acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker. And the White House has responded. This after the president defended the appointment right here on Fox News and said he had no idea Whitaker had criticized the Mueller investigation.
And the Democrat who lost the Georgia governor's contest, refusing to call the Republican winner legitimate, saying voter suppression tainted the race. Is that a fair claim to make without smoking gun evidence?
All that, plus our guy in the center seat. Outnumbered, you'll have to watch it to see. Top of the hour.
Deal. Right
Bill?
on. We'll see you then. Thank you, ladies. Happy Monday. In a moment here, a U.S.-led coalition in Syria is still at work now, carrying out airstrikes on an ISIS stronghold. The latest attempt to take out that group coming up next.
To see because the driver actually survived. The car, driven by 17-year-old Sophia Florsch, went airborne in the Formula 3 Macau Grand Prix Sunday. She suffered a spinal fracture.
Oh, my God.
She's undergoing surgery. It's a miracle she's alive. She tweeted she is fine. The German teenager's car appears to clip another one. Then it flies off there at a high speed on a bend during lap 4. Holy cow.
Amazing that she's going to be okay. It's amazing that nobody on the side of
that video
track
was just
taken out
insane.
either.
Yeah.
So our best to her, right? She tweets that she's going to be fine.
It's amazing.
There you have it. All right, Fox News alert now from the Middle East. The U.S.-led coalition ramping up the airstrikes, pushing its effort to crush ISIS in Syria. Ongoing battle now. Trey Ying's live in Jerusalem for the latest on what's happening. Trey.
Thousands of U.S. advisors on the ground in Syria. And according to the White House and the Trump administration, they say they are not going to pull those troops out of Syria until the Iranians decide to pull their backed fighters and Iranian troops out of the region who are currently backing the regime of Bashar al-Assad.
What about that Iranian involvement there in Syria, and how will that be addressed by President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, Trey?
Well, Bill, this is what President Trump has been trying to do for the past number of months now when it comes to reimposing sanctions on the Iranian regime and key players here in the region. The issue here has to do with pressuring the Iranians to stop a number of proxy wars in the region, whether you're looking at Yemen or involvement in Syria, trying to help the regime of Bashar al-Assad take control of the country, whether that is fighting off ISIS pockets in the eastern part of Syria, or whether in previous times it was fighting off militants that were trying to take over the regime of Bashar al-Assad. But when it comes down to the Iranian regime, the key issue for the prime minister here in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and President Trump, and this strong alliance that they have, Bill, does have to do with the pressure that Iran is putting on Israel and other key allies for the U.S. in the region. You look simply at the Gaza Strip and groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a group that is receiving money from the Iranians through Syria. So all of this getting mixed up here, and certainly a key problem and a key issue that the prime minister here in Israel is going to continue to look to President Trump in the United States to put that pressure on the Iranian regime in Tehran to try to change some of their behavior. Bill?
A lot to track. Trey Yings, thank you so much in Jerusalem on that. Thank you.
So the Dow Jones now down triple digits, in fact. Interesting to note it's the start of the week for Thanksgiving week, and the Dow down right now. We had talked earlier with Charles Payne about how this housing market has been certainly having an effect on our economy, other than the fact that employment is doing well and the economy is strong. But right now, Dow is down almost 400 points now. Just last hour, it was down about a couple hundred. So
just look at this, too. Apparently, Apple's having some news, too, and they're getting hammered as well. So
how about Facebook, too?
$3.95 at the moment. So hang on. We'll see where we go coming up shortly.
All right. President Trump saying that he has answered Robert Mueller's written questions. The question is, when does he turn it over? Does this mean the Russia investigation is wrapping up? Lots of questions. Outnumbered takes that on next.